So I think it's remembering it's not what you look like, it's not what body shape you have, how good you look on Instagram, it's what you know. That essentially is what people are going to want to pay for. Hi, I'm Hollie Grant, and I help women get from a place where they don't like their bodies and they use exercise as a way of controlling their weight or the way their body looks, to genuinely loving exercise and doing it because of the mental health benefits that come with it and because it helps you feel like a badass.
Hollie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
You're so welcome. I mentioned to Stuart a few months ago, I don't know if you saw on Instagram this morning, but he'd mentioned about this podcast, and I said, if I ever get asked to be on that, then I'll be so happy and I'll know that I've made it. And then when your invite came through, I genuinely did a happy dance. So thanks for having me on.
Oh my goodness, it's an absolute pleasure. So tell us about where your career started and, what your early aspirations were as far as, job, career, profession, that sort of thing.
So I grew up with a dad that was in the parachute regiment, so in the military, and they're always away. They've got incredible jobs and they go on incredible adventures, and you don't know where they are in the world, and they're always straight in there. So super strong, super fit, and they stay fit because they don't want to die. So they have a reason to want to be strong and be the best. Then I went off to a military boarding school, paid for by the MOD. So I wasn't from like a rich background at all, but I was very lucky. I went to a military boarding school. And again, there, you exercise because you want to be strong and you want to be fit and you want to be the best. And in theory, they want you to join the military. So exercise was a big part of my life growing up, but in a really positive context, I would say. I was really interested in business, and in business studies A-level, I wanted to open my own cafe. And so I decided I was going to leave school at 18 and open a cafe. And my school were really pushy that I went to university, just get any degree, doesn't matter which one, go and do a degree. So I chose psychology. I'd never done it before. It sounded interesting. University said, oh, you don't need to have done it at A-level. And I got there and I was so far behind everyone else. I did not know what I was doing. And I actually didn't really care for it. So I spent the next 4 years having a great time. And I kind of saw that other women's experience of exercise was not necessarily the same as I'd had. So during university, I saw a lot of disordered eating and, the girls exercising before we were going to go on holiday or after Christmas. It was just quite eye-opening for me. So in my final year of university, my dissertation was on the prevalence of eating disorders in university students.
So at that stage, you were head trainer in a couple of different studios. Was there beginning to be a spark of, okay, maybe there's a method that I'm creating, but also, with the entrepreneurial cogs starting to turn too, of actually, I'm working for somebody else here. Is there an opportunity here for me to work for myself? And can you talk about how that kind of vision started to evolve?
I've always wanted a business. I think it's that growing up, there were periods where we had very little money. My mum was a single mum. So I think for me, that's where a lot of my drive comes from. But I remember even at university, at Valentine's weekend, I made loads of chocolates, like Love Heart chocolates. And I sat in my student union and sold them, which in hindsight is actually really cringy. And then also when I first quit working as a pastry chef, I was doing farmers markets and I created a whole brand called the Sugar Mouse Bakery, and dabbled in that for a while. And so it didn't take long before I was thinking like, hang on a minute, I can do this better than the owner of the studio is. So there actually came a point just before I opened my first studio where I was starting to create this method that combined HIIT and Pilates. I was ending up with lots of private clients on the studio floor, and I was really, really busy. And the owner decided that she wanted to sell the studio, so she came to me first. And of course, definitely, I'll buy it. I've been here years now, and I love it. I love the clients. I'm already the head trainer anyway. You're never here, so I decided to buy the studio. And then for some reason, a couple of months down the line, when it was starting to get really close to this is going to happen, I had it all planned out in my mind, she decided to double the price at the last minute. Her accountant had said, look, you're selling this too low. You need to double the price, quite literally double it, which is a huge amount of money already. And so I pulled out at the last minute. And that day, I literally went on Gumtree and just looked at what was available nearby. Within an hour, I'd found somewhere. I said, can I come view it? Walked in, it was this group of guys, and they were architects, and it was really dark and dingy. Ironically, they had library wallpaper on one wall and brick wallpaper on the other. And I just said, I'll take it, and put down a deposit. And then that was the start of that Fulham studio. And that was the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made.
How structured were you in kind of putting on that kind of business owner hat and really thinking about the vision and the plan and how many clients you needed and what you needed to charge?
So one of the things I've always really struggled with is a bit of imposter syndrome. And I think the reason is that a lot of my career has been really reactionary. It's not necessarily that when I took that job as a receptionist that I thought I'm going to then become manager, then become head trainer, then be a studio owner. It was that it happened really organically and it happened really quickly. And so there wasn't a huge amount of preparation. With regards to the studio, I knew that I needed, let's say, 5 sessions a month to pay my rent. And I already was teaching like probably 40, 50, 60. So I knew I could definitely cover the cost. But what I did was I said to my clients, look, guys, I'm moving and I'd really like to take you with me. It will be a completely private studio. So we're not going to need to whisper. We're not going to have to share the studio with so-and-so who you don't like. And you know what, if you guys buy sessions now, I'll give you a slight discount. So what they did was they all bought like massive packs, and then that meant that covered the costs of me doing up the studio, buying a reformer, treadmill, all of that lot. But it also meant that they were bought into it. They were definitely coming with me. They weren't going to bail at the last minute and change their mind. So actually, if I'm honest, no, there was not really a business plan. It was kind of back of a fag packet planning. But I just kind of knew what, it just makes complete sense. Like, you know, I know that we're going to cover the costs and I know I'll be happier there. And for me, a lot of my business decisions have been based on me being happy because I know what it feels like to be at the bottom and very, very unhappy because of work. And that was not an option for me.
The one thing that you wish that you'd known when you first started out on your business journey?
How long it would take to have some money. I've always said I'll know I've made it when I can afford a cleaner, and I still don't have a cleaner. So yeah, how long it can take.
Yeah. What's one thing that you wish you'd done sooner in your business?
Taken on money. You know, I've had opportunities to have investors get on board, and I've always said no. But I think we borrowed money to do the bump plan, and you can tell the difference. I should have taken on money in the past.
Tell me why you do what you do.
Because I just love women, and I hate women being unhappy. And I know that exercise for me has saved me many, many times. And I want to be able to give that to someone else.
What would you say is the best part about your job?
Oh, it sounds really tacky, but the people, I just get to meet incredible people every day. People that I can't even admit I've met, or people that I can admit I've met, but just different people every single day. And it's just been an incredible journey.
What would you say is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
So this one, I use this a lot when I talk to new instructors, and I know it's a bit it's a bit risky saying this. So when I first decided that I was thinking about being a PT as well as being a Pilates teacher, and I had a PT at the time, and I said to this guy, Shannon, I don't know, because I was so busy teaching, and I was looking around thinking all these instructors have such like shredded bodies. I was like, I don't know. And he said, his advice to me was never trust a skinny PT. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that entirely, but his sentiment was correct. He was saying to me that when it came to male PTs, the guys that you saw walking around the gym who were absolutely shredded had so much free time because they weren't necessarily the best instructors. But some of the best instructors actually had like the least PT looking bodies. And he said, like, you know, it's about what you know, not what you look like. And in an industry where I was noticing a massive shift towards young, pretty girls who were great at makeup and Instagram, I felt like I was being a bit left behind. And so actually that stuck with me. So I think it's remembering it's not what you look like, it's not what body shape you have, how good you look on Instagram. It's what you know. That essentially is what people are going to want to pay for.
Tell me about some of the early challenges that you encountered, and then we'll get into a little bit of how you started to kind of build your personal brand and kind of become more of a marketeer in your business as well.
The fitness industry is very, very different now to what it was 10 years ago. I actually can't explain how different it is. It's like a completely different world. So back then, you know, the fitness industry wasn't huge, and people were exercising for the right reasons, I would say, in some ways, or at least in Pilates. You know, people were doing it because they were injured or they wanted to be really strong. So when I got my studio, there weren't any other like private one-to-one studios. What I wanted a room where it was just me and the client. And I wanted it to feel really luxury and really, really welcoming. And so that I could reach those women who weren't yet into exercise and try and get them in and change their perception of exercise and get them to love exercise. So I had this private studio, and when I reached out, I would reach out to editors of magazines and you know, big journalists in newspapers. And because there wasn't much competition at the time, they all came. So I knew all the editors. We were featured in every single magazine. There was a little picture of me doing a pike on the front of the Sunday Telegraph, on the front of the main paper. You know, it was actually really easy to get press back then because there wasn't much competition. I was the only one doing that kind of stuff. So we were really busy. I think the challenges were probably that I was overworked. I love teaching. I love that hour with that client. But I was really burning out again. So it was kind of getting to a point where I was thinking, am I slipping back to being a pastry chef again, where I'm just completely overrun? So I say that was the main challenge, was more a time thing. There's only one of me. And so initially it was really, really busy, loads of press. But then as time went on, I realized I needed to start thinking about how can I scale my time back? Yeah. And I know, Lauren, you talk about this a lot. You know, there's only one of you. Yeah. And the problem was I'd sort of built a bit of a name for myself, but I knew that I needed to get other instructors in. So I think the challenges came actually a little bit further down the line when I realized, how do I now take myself a bit further away and build that trust with new instructors? How can I trust new instructors? And try to grow the business, because I was so busy teaching that I wasn't actually managing to grow the business. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life.
Tell us a little bit more about how you then multiplied your business and started scaling it through taking on additional instructors and teaching them your method so that you could kind of scale back some of your time.
Yeah, it's a really important point. So we touched on it really briefly, but when I was working in studios, and we'd mentioned about how clients are saying that they wanted to get fit and strong, I started creating this combination of HIIT and Pilates, because it was kind of common sense. It was like, if I can get them to do everything in the class that they need, then they don't need to train with anybody else. They'll stay with me. They'll get results because they've got everything they want to do. And HIIT is ideal for people that don't like cardio in some ways, because it's only short bursts. You just have to do it real quickly, and then we can move on to the stuff you enjoy. So it became really popular, and I needed to give it a name. And sadly, that name kind of haunted me for quite a long time, because I chose the model method because it was like the model pupil. It's like the perfect method, but there's no denying that I did also train supermodels at the time. But anyway, I chose that name. You know, that's a decision that I'll always live to regret, because it gave me lots of press, but also it did not resonate with my message whatsoever. So further down the line, I grew to really hate that name. But anyway, so I had this model method, and that started to get lots of traction. So then I just knew that it wasn't necessarily me that needed to be teaching this. It was the method that needed to be taught. In the studio, you know, we had machines that showed you whether your left arm was stronger than your right arm. You know, we could be really functional. We had loads of equipment there. And that's what people loved. Yes, they might like me, but that's what they loved. So then I started hiring instructors. I started hiring someone I knew really well, who was also a physio, Vanessa, who, oh my gosh, I just still absolutely love, is a really close friend of mine now. And she was lovely as well. And like, if people like you, they'll pay to spend an hour with you. And she just had to make sure that she taught it exactly the same as me. So I was really strict when I taught my instructors the model method. It was all written down in a pack. They had to do loads of observation of me. They had to practice on me. I had to observe them, do tests on them. I was really, really strict about it. But what that meant is that actually, when I did start handing clients over to these girls and saying, you know, look, Abby, I promise, Vanessa, you'll be in great hands. You won't even notice the difference between me and her. The feedback would then be like, I love you, but Vanessa's also awesome. And like, it was like I was training with you. So that was really, really important.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Hollie. So much great advice, a super inspiring journey. And yeah, for anybody listening who is in the prenatal journey, I can highly recommend checking out the bump plan and frankly, everything that Hollie does.
Thank you. So lovely.